Hello, this is Todd Luck, and this is a review of Masters of the Universe Revolution Issue 2 from Dark Horse Comics. This is the second in a four-issue miniseries that is a prequel to Masters of the Universe Revolution. It's out right now at your local comic shops, your comic book dealers, and it's also available digitally on Kindle. And this is a prequel, as I said, to Revolution. And so there's no He-Man in it. It is just the story of Hordak and his apprentice Keldor, who of course becomes Skeletor. All right, let's start with the cover. And I think it's all right. We've got Skeletor and Hordak and Grayskull in the back. But, you know, Grayskull's kind of covered up by the lightning and all this stuff happening. And Hordak is covered up by this Havoc staff, which according to the story in the miniseries, or at least so far, he shouldn't even be able to hold that. But it is kind of cool seeing these two characters together on the cover like that. This is, you know, exploring a time in Skeletor's life we rarely see explored. So it is kind of interesting to see the master and the apprentice here. So as I've said before, there are a lot of names on this comic, but Ted Biselli from Netflix and Rob David from Mattel co-plotted this with Tim Sheridan. They basically just sat down and had a conversation about what could be in the comic. All three of these guys worked on the actual Revolution animated series, and Tim Sheridan is the actual writer here. And so this issue basically opens with just a regular day at the office for Keldor Horde Apprentice. And so he's been sent to investigate this planet that the Horde is considering conquering. And so Keldor decides to take the initiative and invade this super advanced planet. And look at this. These people are made of crystal, which is really, really cool. This is just a really cool new planet that, even though it's almost a throwaway scene, it's just really cool to see this kind of stuff in a Masters of the Universe story. I feel almost certain that this is a tribute to Crystar, the Crystal Warrior, who was another 1980s fantasy hero who had a toy line, who, by the way, has a Marvel Legends figure out right now that you can get. And I gotta say, I've always wanted to see Crystar and He-Man in the same story. And even though it's not quite that, it is still pretty cool to see some crystal people in a Masters of the Universe story. While last issue was leisurely paced, and this issue doesn't cover that much plot-wise, it's basically just establishing our characters and foreshadowing what's going to happen in the next two issues. It does do so this time with a lot more substance to it. We go into the motivations of our characters. We establish a couple new planets we haven't seen before. Even if they're throwaway references, it's still appreciated. And we actually explain what the Fright Zone is, which was a little confusing last issue, so I'm glad they cleared that up here. The issue is well paced, and the space in the issue is well used, except for this mysterious double-page splash that, for whatever reason, they decided to take up 2 pages with just them standing there and Hordak saying a single line, but at least it looks really cool. Daniel HDR continues to do some fantastic artwork. This is definitely the type of art I like to see on a Masters of the Universe comic. Look how cool Hordak's steed Mantisaur looks. And kind of the interesting thing story-wise about this scene is that Mantisaur is actually portrayed as being a steed that can be ridden by multiple people, right? There's more than one here. So I'm sure Mattel is loving that, right? Whenever they release him for Origins or Masterverse, people will be buying multiples so they can have Keldor and Hordak riding him. And there's some clever tidbits with the writing. So for instance, Keldor is the captain of this ship at the beginning. And so they do a Star Trek reference, which makes sense because, of course, in Revolution, Keldor was voiced by William Shatner, who is very famous for playing Captain Kirk. And it was nice to see Modulok as the science officer, though, again, the new reader may be a little mystified as to why he's in 2 different bodies at this point. But again, for the uninitiated, he is a shapeshifter, and he can not only change how many arms and heads and legs he has, but he can also transform himself into separate bodies. And I think overall the art and the story work well together. There are two panels where the dialogue is covering up the artwork a little bit too much for me, but other than that, this is a well put together comic. So I will say I got a lot more enjoyment out of this issue than I did the last one. I think it's very well drawn. I think the story is starting to get interesting. I'm still not impressed with the character motivations, but I didn't expect to be. You know, we got something with depth and humanity back in Revelation. This is just a different kind of story, and I think it can be enjoyed on its own merits. So I do definitely recommend picking up Masters Universe Revolution. You're going to want to start with the first issue, and of course, you're going to want to have watched the animation before you read this. And after this miniseries is done, we'll have Turtles of Grayskull starting in September from Dark Horse Comics, and I am definitely looking forward to that. The Freddie Williams artwork looks amazing. All right, so that is all my thoughts on the second issue of Revolution. I'm probably going to wait until issue 4 before I do my spoiler thoughts, because this is a very serialized story and I want to see where it's going before I start talking about the specifics. And so like and subscribe for more videos. And until next time, good journey.